Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are on the Brink in the capital of Northern BC, Prince George. And it is early May. In fact, it's May the 10th today, I believe. And it's springtime, a little bit rainy, but still it's approaching spring in Prince George. I have a fantastic guest today. Her name is Brooklyn and Derksen. And nice. Welcome to the show, Brooklyn.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I've known Brooklyn for quite a number of years, and from Prince George. And in fact, we did a bit of a show together once in 2017, I believe. That's nearly 5 years ago. And, so for our guest, tell us a little bit about yourself and your past.
So, as John said, my name is Brooklyn Derksen. I feel like for a 26-year-old, I've lived a lot of life. I feel like life has been a whirlwind, everything from high academics to high achieving sports and music, and being just high level everything, putting lots of energy and love and passion into everything I do.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden one day, my body just could not do it anymore. And I started experiencing chronic illness and struggles with my mental health in high school. And I navigated the best I could with what I knew, and all the changes that were happening in my body at the time.
Just happened just like that?
Just like that, overnight. All
There
of a sudden,
were no indications of any sort?
No, I feel like when you're in high school and you're going through puberty and all these changes are happening, of course, there's difficult times and difficult situations that come up, and
well, sure.
But nothing out of the ordinary, of just learning to navigate life and having those experiences that shape you. And all of a sudden, my body just started saying no, and my mind followed. And fast forward a few years after that, I was really struggling with my mental health. I went to see a psychiatrist, and I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and anxiety disorder. And for years that followed, I went through phases where I really struggled with my mental health and my physical health, and phases where things were a bit lighter and less difficult, and where I felt more balanced. And I went through a number of years being very scared, being very unaware of what was going on and how to make sense of it. But I navigated through it. I learned skills, I learned techniques, and it's really become a lot of who I am. It's shaped me. It's taught me a lot of resilience, a lot of courage. And fast forward to back in 2017, when we did that video together, that was a big turning point for me in my journey, coming out into the open and wanting to shine a light on everything that I was going through in secret.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Yeah, it was very pivotal. I was at a point where I was still experiencing suicidal ideation, and I was not well, but I really wanted to spread the message that it was still okay to be unwell and to still be strong and courageous, and that it's accepted. Yeah. And that was really the goal in that whole journey we went through together with that video and leading into the mental health event that followed. And since then, I've really come a long way. I have a whole new lease on life. I feel fulfilled and joyful, and even in midst moments and times where I feel struggles with my mental health, I'm here and I'm enjoying life, and I'm finding things that make me feel passionate and exploring them. And all the while I feel like much more of a well-rounded, strong person for going through what I've been through.
Yeah, so when we had our discussion together, and you were so open and so candid about all those issues that are not all that much talked about, especially not then. There was an element of stigma attached to it, still to a certain extent, but it's starting to change. As you know from my book, I'm ADHD, and didn't really talk about it, because not even to my doctor when I first found out. I was already 57 years old when I found the book, and all of a sudden I read it and I said, oh my God, that's me.
Light bulbs.
Light bulb, right? And, and then gradually became more aware of it, and then read more about it, and went through all that period, so, and then later obviously knew I was okay, so that's me, and then called it a superpower, in fact, and I believe that is so. And then today, actually July the 8th, we are putting out a book called ADHD Unlocked.
Cool.
And that's all about ADHD, and the purpose of the book is not so much John the writer, he's trying to make a fortune in writing books. Well, it's not going to happen, but more than anything, to tell this story, to be open about it from a perspective of being a non-medical individual, but more from a perspective as living it, and then sharing that with another 10 or 15 people that also contribute to the story. And so that I remember well with you and me, and having the discussion in 2017 that you were so candid about it, and I always thought of you, you're such an open individual and such a good communicator that it is so important for you to share with others that surely are struggling with all of this, still do today and did then. And then as it gradually opened up, obviously you have become much more proactive in it, and and doing a lot of other things that you are in yoga, very active and very proactive. You're an amazing singer.
Thank you.
Piano player. All those talents, right, that you have, and but one of the most important things is that how did you go through it, and how did it all kind of unfold, and how did you deal with it, and how did you then, a lot of this is very lonely stuff, right, because it's so difficult to talk about it a lot of times, and a lot of that has to be resolved in your own system.
My own process.
Yeah.
And a lot of it came down to acceptance and being able to digest, but also metabolize what my experience was, because it was back in 2017 when we had that candid conversation, and we brought a lot of truths out into the open.
Yeah.
It did feel very much a stigma at the time, and there weren't a lot of people talking about it. It's come such a long way. Mental health awareness and taking care of your mental health and the importance of it, which is amazing to see. But I remember in that time it felt very scary, very lonely, like you said, and it was very uncertain of what are people going to think of me. And I knew deep in my heart I was doing something for the good of all, and the good of everyone who may be feeling similar experiences to what I was going through, or who maybe just weren't feeling okay and just needed that little nudge to know that it's okay not to feel okay. Yeah. And I really remember feeling, even though that I knew I was doing something for others and for myself on a grander scheme, there was still lots of fears. I'd walk around going to the gym, around the grocery store, feeling insecure because I felt so much more exposed. I'd put my whole self out there. For anyone to see who could find it. Here I am. Here I am. Yeah. Take it or leave it. This is Brooklyn. Yeah. She is resilient and amazing, and she's a singer and an athlete and an academic, and she does all these great things, but she also has deep struggles, and she also has this part to herself that's hurting. Yeah. And I'm all of it. I'm like a big mosaic of all of the crazy things that we go through. Yeah. And so that was a really big moment for me to step into my full self and to admit and to really come to full recognition with those struggles I was having. Yeah. So in the years that followed and through the mental health events that we've collaborated on, and where I've done lots of speaking, and since I write on social media and write blog posts about the realities of mental health and what the experience is like, just as like you're hoping to do with your book, share more of the deeper experience, not the science, but this is how it feels. This is how it feels to be going through the experience.
Yeah.
And I've noticed in the years that I have been opening up that more and more people respond, more and more people are feeling seen and heard. I wrote a big post about mental illness for Let's Talk Day a few years back. I want to say back in 2020.
Yeah.
And I'm still getting messages and remarks about it, and it's still changing lives, and it's still educating people, not from a scientific perspective, but from on a perspective of humanity.
Even more important,
of just human to human connection, of how maybe one can approach a loved one with mental health, how maybe one can approach themselves experiencing mental health. And it's been incredible to see how
and feeling
the impact.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even with all of that, and the same. I most of my life I felt, even when people thought I was so successful. I came to Canada at $25.47 and didn't know a soul and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Couldn't speak the language and wanted to build a mill. It was basically saying I need to know who I am and if I can do that alone. It was. Part of it was I wanted to come to Canada. The other part was, to pursue the dream of building a mill. But the other one was feeling I was a failure and I had to start anew.
Right. Yeah. A rediscovering of who John is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then through circumstances, in a way, that it happened to you, but in a different period for me, than standing in that bookstore and then saying, oh, that's me. Yeah. And then finding out what it was, but then there was stigma attached to it. There I'm trying to build a company, and I go to the bankers to lend me money, and I have ADHD. I'm not, that's a disorder. It's right in the acronym, so do I become a good risk, with that problem, so you had to kind of go beyond that, and then gradually it has become more accepted as, I find it over and over and over again, Brooklyn, where I interview people and saying, when was it? Last week, 2 weeks ago, I interviewed Donna Flood from Hospices, Donna, where she said her son, 11 years old, discovered 2 weeks before that he was ADHD, or they discovered.
Yeah, wow.
And I've found from so many others that said, I have it in my family, and so all of that, including mental illness, is is something that is very. I wouldn't like to call it common to make it be smaller than it is, but there's a lot of people that are struggling with it and still not accepting it. Maybe in some cases, or thinking that it has stigma to it that makes them lesser than, or or being alone. So yeah. Coupled
with the last few years of going through a global pandemic where isolation rates have been high, this idea of physical distancing and distancing from other people makes you feel even more alone and detached from those who may be able to support.
Yeah.
So an already very lonely and isolating experience just becomes 10 times more lonely, because then you feel this wall almost between all other humans, given the weird circumstance that's been present, that we've been all navigating together.
Yeah. Now tell me a little bit about your family, because you have an amazing family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I have an incredible family. I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. I know a lot of people don't grow up with the type of childhood that I grew up with. And don't get me wrong, even in close families, there's still struggles. There's still things we have to talk through and work through. Humans are humans. We all have the things we carry.
No question.
And so in keeping our close dynamic, it means that not only myself and my brother, but my parents also have to be open and honest, especially as we've grown older into adults. And through this whole experience of me opening up about my truth and what's going on internally for me, they've also had to follow suit so that we can really see each other as full humans. They're my mom and my dad, but they're, aside from the labels, they're just people. And so how can we all gather together as a unit and understand each other as people, labels aside.
Imperfections.
And knowing that very much of their internal experience and what they go through, even with their own mental health, has shaped my life. Because they were such a big part in my growth and my childhood. One brother.
Yeah, and then your dad is Anthony, and he is Van Horlick Trophies.
So my dad owns More Appliance, which is somewhere just over there on Queensway. I think it may be on that side.
That side,
and then my mom is Van Horlick. So my mom, my auntie, and my grandma. My grandparents came here in the 60s and started that business. And they've been here for a long time. Over 50 years.
50 years, So they are part of, 50 years ago, and Prince George was still a boomtown.
Oh yeah, my grandpa came up here to start the mill.
Yeah. Amazing. And then the question usually was, when did you get here and when are you leaving?
Right.
Because people usually came here to make money and then they leave again.
That was their initial plan, and then they had kids, and it at the time was a great opportunity for them to settle down here. They liked the environment to raise their children in, and then my auntie and my mom were born, and sure enough, now we're all here.
Now, you spent some time in university.
I did.
So, was that in Vancouver or?
I was at VIU in Nanaimo.
In Nanaimo.
I was studying jazz studies, so music.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was really struggling with my mental health.
Yeah,
I was going through phases of psychosis, so blackouts, physical self-harm, essentially.
Yeah.
And I was alone. I was living alone.
Yeah, that doesn't help either.
It was
right? So
really
you didn't
hard.
have the family support?
No. So, of course, my mom and I conversed over text and the phone, but it's just not the same. And
No.
I was in a new city. I didn't have a lot of friends. And I was working, trying to make ends meet and pay for my place. And so stress was on heavy.
Yeah.
And really by the end of the first year, I wasn't finding that I felt passionate about what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because something such as music, it's a safe haven for me. It's my bliss.
Yeah.
And it's something that no matter what I'm going through in life, I have it.
You can always go
it's
there.
Such a friend.
Yeah.
And during those times, I was being graded, and my creative process was being analyzed by a teacher and being graded on what aspects of the curriculum I was covering. And so it just didn't, the joy was being sucked out of it.
Yeah.
Because creativity and playing from the heart, there shouldn't be a grade attached to that. No. It wasn't right for me. So there was that aspect to it, which was hard on my mental health, but then also the nature of the beast, just being alone in a town and trying to make it work.
When was that?
That was back in the year of 2015 to 2016.
Tricky. So that was actually the year before you and me.
Yeah. And that was the year that I was really struggling, and I left school early, and I came home.
So a lot of stuff, negative stuff, happened, right?
I came home, and that was really the big light bulb moment that we chatted about in our conversation in 2017 when I knew a change has to be made. I need more support. I need more help, because the way that I'm going about this right now is not good.
No.
It's not good for me.
Yeah.
I had a psychiatrist who was helping me, but from afar, and I was on crazy antipsychotic medication, which was really hard to navigate. There's one thing of going through these very, very powerful experiences of feeling paranoid and going through psychosis and feeling these very heavy emotions of depression. But then there's another thing that these medications do, and they cut everything off. And so I felt like a complete empty shell, like hollow, which also is not a fulfilling and very depressive experience. And so I was sitting here trying to care for my mental health, but feeling worse all the while. And so it was really that moment that I discovered there needed to be a happy medium of where I could be taking action and being proactive about caring for my mental health, but in a way that didn't seem to make things worse.
Yeah, utilize all those amazing qualities that you have and then put them together in helping others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, very, very critical. And it was more of a turning point in your life.
Big time.
In those areas.
Yeah, it was a time of a lot of pain, a lot of darkness, a lot of sorrow, and for me, but also for my family. They were scared. Just as much as I wasn't sure if I'd make it, they weren't sure if I'd make it. And so it was not only a traumatizing experience for me, but it was for them. And we've had to grow through that and come through the other side stronger and let the fears go.
Yeah, and you did.
We did.
So if you now look back, Brooklyn, so a lot has happened in a general sense in terms of recognition of the mental health and ADHD and all the other things that we have or struggling with, categorized as mental illness in some form or fashion. Then what has changed to make that better other than medication? The easiest thing always is saying, well, medication.
Oh yeah.
That's not the solution, because what it does is create that emptiness within. So then, there has to be some form of reconciliation that you can build on strengths that you have, and so. Yeah.
So, great question. Thank you for asking. The biggest thing for me was coming to the understanding that mental health is a very, very individual experience. So what may be the ticket or the remedies for me may be completely different remedies for someone else who's struggling. So sure, medication can play a role for some in some instances, depending on what their experience is. But for me, it was clear that medication was becoming something that didn't align with what I needed. I have a very sensitive brain due to a chronic health situation I experience. I deal with brain inflammation, and that makes my brain very, very sensitive to anything coming in, any stimulus, chemicals included, which means these medications were really hard to navigate. So I realized, okay, medication may not be the fit for me, and while it works wonders for some, that wasn't my case. So then I had to explore different avenues, like yoga was a big avenue for me, breathwork, presence and grounding exercises, like what we did before we started. And also supplementation, natural supplements, vitamins.
For the benefit of our guests watching us, they're going to say, okay, what did they do? So help them with telling me. So how we started the interview is you said to me,
I asked you if you wanted to do a grounding exercise. And what I think may be very powerful for our listeners is if we do it.
Should we just do it?
We do it now, and they can, wherever they're at, they can join in. Okay.
Do I take my glasses off?
Yeah, that would be great. Take your glasses off. Okay, so we'll start by rubbing our palms together. Of course, if you're driving, you don't want to do this, but wherever you're at, stop what you're doing and see how this feels. So once you've generated some heat in your palms, it's going to feel nice and warm. Place your palms over your eyes, close your eyes, soften into the blackness. Take a nice deep breath. Sigh it out. One more. And you'll notice your fingertips are at the top of your forehead, at your hairline.
Okay.
And just start gently tapping the top of your forehead, very gently with your fingertips, right along your hairline. And you'll start, with tapping your fingertips, you'll start moving down the sides of your face, along your hairline to your temples.
Okay.
Just tapping your temples a couple times.
Okay.
Moving your fingertips towards your ears.
Okay.
Back behind your ears.
Okay.
Down the sides of your neck.
Yeah.
And then they cross over the front where your chest is, meeting at your sternum. Palms go flat over your sternum. And nice deep breath in. Sigh it out. Deep breath in. Sigh it out. For the sake of our listeners, let's do one more. So bring your hands together. Rubbing those palms, generating heat.
Yeah.
Palms come over the eyes.
Yeah.
Softening into the blackness.
Yeah.
Deep breath. Fingertips are at the top of your forehead, at your hairline.
Yeah.
And now you can either gently tap or massage along your hairline, stroking your fingertips down to your temples.
Yeah.
Bring them back to your forehead.
Yeah.
Back down to your temples.
Yeah.
Massage your temples out a little bit.
Yeah.
Send them some love. Ooh, that feels good. I don't know about you, but I love that.
I do too. Yeah.
Move your fingertips back to your ears,
Yeah.
up over behind your ears,
Yeah.
down the sides of your neck, to over your chest. Palms go flat on your chest, over your heart, your sternum as you inhale. Sigh it out. One more deep breath. Inhale. Sigh it out. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes once more. Just notice how you feel.
Yeah, it feels good.
So that's a vagus nerve stimulation. Our vagus nerve is a nerve that stimulates our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest system. Okay. So that is the system that allows us to relax, to be calm, settles our body, sends good endorphins through the brain, through the body.
Yeah.
And really allows us to feel grounded in the moment, settled.
So, it feels good.
Yeah.
So, if you do that, you do it frequently?
Yeah, I'll do that multiple times a day whenever I need it.
When you feel like...
If I feel anxious, if I'm feeling worrisome, like thoughts are spinning, emotions are running high.
Yeah.
If there's a stressful environment or a stressful moment, you know, things are going a mile an hour around you and you're feeling so squeezed. Any moment like that, that's something that's very accessible. It's free.
Yeah.
It's always with you, and it's super quick and simple that you can do in any moment to really bring your nervous system back down to a space of regulation, and hopefully where you can feel a little bit more balanced. Yeah. Yeah. So those types of practices have played a huge role in my healing. Yeah. Yep. And they really were things I stumbled across and also were taught by teachers. My therapist has taught me a lot. Yeah. I have an energy therapist and she's wonderful. And my yoga teachers and mentors have taught me a lot along the way of these different practices I can take in my everyday life and the mindsets that I can approach life with. Practices like that, among others, breathwork, have really helped me navigate and changing my perspective on mental health as a whole. Yeah. Yeah, noting that it's a very individual experience, so I really need to tune into myself, what works for me. Yeah. As I'm sure you've experienced what works for you and you've discovered things that help.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay, you know. It doesn't have to be like that. That's who you are. Yeah. You know? And so with yoga, you're still very involved in that as well?
Yeah, so I teach every week at the studio. Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, you work with others that you're still very active in communicating with other people that are going through difficulties with mental health?
Yeah, so since I really opened up, I've made my social media channel an open door for people to come and chat with me as they need to. And I often have people of all walks of life coming to me just asking for their...
From all over?
Yeah, all over. Some live here, some don't. And the age span is huge. Some maybe in their 20s, some maybe in their 60s, who are messaging me to ask me, how do I navigate mental health imbalances? How have I gotten to where I am from where I was? How do I manage to live a fulfilled and joyful life, even alongside phases and times of depression and anxiety?
Right.
How do I even get to accepting the messengers that may be coming through when you're feeling depressed?
Right.
And so it's been really beautiful to be able to be a sounding board and a space for people to feel safe and heard. And I often find that a lot of people feel better if they just can express how they're feeling and hear that it's okay and it's valid.
Yeah.
It really can make huge changes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now you've been very active as well as in Ride Don't Hide.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. When did you get involved there?
So Ride Don't Hide...
Tell first to the public what it is all about.
Ride Don't Hide, it's a community event.
Yeah.
And how it works is people gather... Well, how it used to work, it's changed since the pandemic. But how it started was it was a community bike ride. And people would sign up to their teams and register online. And they'd sign up to bike different distances. Like a 50 kilometer, 30 kilometer, so on.
Right.
And they'd choose how far they wanted to bike, and they'd fundraise for mental health awareness in the process. Yeah. And come the day of the ride, everyone would gather, and they'd all start at the start line together and do the whole ride as a group, essentially. Yeah. And how it started is one year my brother volunteered. He was doing volunteer work for his med school applications, and he said, "This sounds cool, I'm gonna do this." And the following year, my dad thought, well, that was a really cool event, and things were coming into more awareness and more acceptance within my family just of what I was going through. And he thought to himself, well, how can I show support? Because there's not a lot you can really do or say to change things for someone going through mental health. But he said, at least I can show my support by riding my bike. Yeah. And so he signed up for the ride, and it really was an honoring experience for me, because it was a way for him to show me that he cared and that he supported. Yeah. And for me to be able to recognize and see that as someone who was struggling. Yeah. And so fast forward to the pandemic, the ride has changed. It's not so much of an event to raise funds for the Canadian Mental Health Association Northern BC, which is a space where mental health support, suicide prevention programs are available here in the community. But it's now become a month-long event, so people can participate throughout the entire month of June. It's happening this year in June. And they can ride their bike, they can run, they can do any sort of activity that resonates with them in support of their own mental health and in support of mental health for all. Yeah. And so they get to log their activities and what they do and raise funds along the way, spreading the word to friends and family. Yeah. And people can go online, donate to their team or whoever they want to support. Yeah. And all that money gets collected and goes back into the community to support this program of Canadian Mental Health Association. All for the Northern BC? Yeah, Northern BC. Yeah. So that the money raised goes back into the community, so that support goes back into the community where those who need the support. I always say I've been very lucky to have the support system I do, but not everyone does. Yeah. So those who may need that extra support have somewhere to go, where they're gaining awareness, have compassion. They work with people to learn tools to manage their experience. And ultimately, they're given a chance to get a new lease on life. They're given a chance to step back out into the world with different tools and treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many years now that we have done that?
Ooh, how many years? I want to say since 2017, that year that we met for our last chat.
Yeah.
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 And my brother had done the year prior, but that was the year that my dad had signed up just as a way to show his support.
Yeah.
And the year that followed, I became the spokesperson.
Yeah.
And my face was on posters all over.
Yeah. And it's very, very important. And then, we have been one of the primary sponsors for it since that 4 years now, I think.
Yeah. And what a gift.
Yeah, and then that reminds me. So we have $1,000 for you, and then the other thing that we do is we sponsor equal as well to this $1,000 in marketing, as we did the other 3 years.
Aww.
So
thank you so much. I appreciate you.
So important, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm so grateful for all that you do and all that you give back, especially to mental health initiatives, and the way that you've supported me in my journey, and how it's grown and expanded since our chat that day.
Yeah, I've been watching you very carefully, obviously, and been just amazing how far you've come.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So, how do you see the future going forward? Not only as it applies to you, but it will become less stigma attached, better understood, to say the least. That mental health, that people are somewhat different, maybe in their own way, individuals. And for people in a general sense to understand that and to make their lives easier to accept it, is very important. Is that happening now? Do you kind of look back and think about Brooklyn as you went down through the high school and, at the point that things were at the most critical point, all of a sudden change your life, so...
Yeah.
How do we deal with that?
I see big changes coming. I mean, even on social media, and you'll go through a scroll and you'll see so many people opening up about their own experiences and their own trials and tribulations, which in itself opens the door for acceptance for us to experience all these wild experiences that we do as humans.
Yeah.
But I also see more education is circling around. More people are supporting, more people are willing to lend an ear, more people are, even medical professionals are available through an online space. And this has been the beautiful thing about technology and how it keeps us connected, is that there's more people with education, with compassion, with deep knowledge of the realities of these experiences, who are available to chat to, who are available to get services from, support from, and who are also giving education. So those who may be struggling can have a better idea. They may not necessarily have to go to the bookstore and find out through a book what they're experiencing.
At 57.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have a chance to find out earlier.
Yeah.
They have a chance to find out from the comfort of their couch, on their phone. And I think that's a really powerful change that's happening.
Yeah.
But I also do find that there's a new acceptance to the individuality of mental illness.
Yeah.
So this common theme of listen to yourself, listen to what feels good to you, know that you can trust yourself and you can trust your instincts and your intuition.
Yeah.
Because what someone may say will help you, may not. But you ultimately know, okay, I'm feeling sad in this moment, or or I'm feeling deflated in this moment. What could help me? And that self-inquiry, I think, will be a huge change moving forward. Because people will not only have services and options available to them to build their treatment plan, but it'll be self-guided. So they'll know what they need, and it'll be so individual to them.
Yeah.
And I think those will be some key changes moving forward that are being more talked about, more openly shared.
And the stigma will not be like it used to be and saying, well, you know, it's mental health, right? So, you know, that kind of a thing.
I think it'll continue to be accepted more and more every day. People are realizing some people with mental illness can get out of bed, some can't. Some need medication, some don't. Some can work, some can't.
Right.
Some experience suicidal ideation, some don't. But it doesn't change the validity of the experience for any of those people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's being really recognized, is you don't have to be labeled with a mental illness to really understand mental health needs and mental health awareness and support for it. Yeah. It doesn't have to be this big outward thing of oh, they tried to kill themselves, so they're struggling with their mental health.
Yeah.
It can be, oh, you know, they're going through a loss, they're grieving, they're struggling with their mental health, and it's all okay.
Yeah.
And that in time things will change, and there's support offered for that, and hopefully as they grow through that experience, they'll gain the support they need and be able to move through it.
A lot has changed already in the last 5-6 years.
Oh yeah.
And is moving further forward quicker and quicker, right?
Oh yeah. I feel since when I was open about my experience and we shared that conversation, and you opened up to me about your experience as well.
Yeah.
That conversation alone was such a big turning point.
Yeah.
But ever since, rather than mental illness or mental health needs being something to hide or feel ashamed about, it's been more openly celebrated. Like, yes, you're human. You experience the many dynamics that we get to experience.
Yeah.
Nice. You're living life fully, and that means all spectrum of emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Mm-hmm. Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Amazing conversation. Nice to see you again. Obviously, we stay in touch, but to do our interview and sharing it with everybody out there.
It's been such a pleasure today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love you.
I love you too.
Okay.
Aw.